retired doctor vanished from Mount Rainier. 4 years later, they find this in a beaver dam. They searched the mountain for weeks. 4 years later, a pile of sticks built by beavers held the answer no one saw coming. Mount Rainier, a vast and untamed giant rising 14,000 feet above sea level, has always been beautiful, but it has a darker side. People go missing here, a lot of them. Some disappear during storms, others vanish without a trace under clear blue skies. You can lose the trail in a second. You can vanish in a moment. But this one's different. This isn't just another lost hiker story. This is about a brilliant retired doctor, a man of logic, of reason, who vanished without a trace on a calm spring day. And 4 years later, something was found inside a beaver dam that turned the entire story upside down. You're not going to believe what was left behind, or what it might mean. Let's start at the beginning. His name was Dr. Walter Langston. 67 years old, retired for just under a year. He was once the chief of surgery at a major Portland hospital. Not just brilliant, methodical, precise, known for never missing a detail in the operating room. Colleagues described him as steady-handed and unshakable. The kind of guy who could pull someone back from the brink with a calm, focused mind, even under pressure. But beneath the coat and stethoscope, Walter had always been a nature lover. He spent his weekends exploring trails, documenting birds, identifying wildflowers. It was his form of meditation, away from beeping monitors and fluorescent lights. His favorite place? Mount Rainier. After retirement, he wanted one last trip, a kind of personal send-off before settling into quiet suburban life with his wife, Marie. He told her he'd be gone for 3 days. "Just me and the trees," he said with a smile. "I need a little silence before the grandkids start visiting." He left a detailed itinerary, marked routes, estimated return time, even weather forecasts. The kind of preparation you'd expect from a surgeon. He wasn't careless. He wasn't reckless. But on May 6th, he vanished. The day he entered the park, conditions were ideal. The morning was crisp, around 52 degrees. Skies were clear, a light breeze moved through the trees. He checked in at the Sunrise Visitor Center around 8:20 evening, had a short conversation with a ranger about current trail conditions, and parked his car in Lot C near the Ojai Lakes trailhead. There's even a receipt from a nearby supply store, timestamped 7:42 a.m., energy bars, trail mix, water, a spare lighter. Nothing unusual. He was wearing a navy mule hiking jacket, khaki trail pants, and a wide-brimmed hat. That's the last confirmed sighting. Later that evening, a dense fog rolled in unexpectedly, something not predicted in that day's forecast. Not storm-level dangerous, but enough to throw off your sense of direction if you were deep in the forest. 3 days passed, then 4. Mary Langston assumed he was just taking his time, enjoying the quiet, maybe spending an extra night under the stars. But by day 5, when he missed his check-in call, she knew something was wrong. She called the Park Service. They dispatched a search team within hours. What they found was puzzling. Walter's tent was there, pitched in a small clearing about 2.7 miles off the main trail. Undisturbed, neatly arranged, sleeping bag unrolled, camp stove cold but intact, flashlight, compass, even his book. The Sand County Almanac was open to the same page he'd been reading a week earlier. But his backpack? Gone. So were his boots. But the strangest part? No signs of a struggle, no animal tracks, no drag marks, no trail of disturbed vegetation, just gone. Like he'd walked off quietly into the trees and never looked back. The initial search began on May 11th. Standard grid sweeps, helicopter flyovers, canine teams, volunteers, rangers, local hikers. The area was combed for 9 straight days. They covered more than 35 square miles. Drones with thermal cameras flew low passes at night. Sniffer dogs picked up a weak scent heading southeast, toward a ravine called Devil's Hollow. but it ended abruptly near a creek bed. Somewhere around day 6, a volunteer spotted a footprint about the right size, barefoot, deep in the mud off trail. It was never confirmed as Walter's, but it was odd. Why barefoot? Why that far out? Other searchers began to report similar strange finds. A crumpled map, damp but intact, found 8 miles from the original campsite, circled in red pen a route that didn't exist on any park-issued materials. Child-sized sock hanging from a tree limb. Boots, both of them, discovered standing upright in the center of a shallow stream, laces tied 9 miles away. Later confirmed to be Walter's. No footprints leading to or from the scene. No blood. No damage. It was like someone had set them down deliberately. By day 10, hope began to fade. Rescuers began to quietly shift from search and rescue to search and recovery. Park officials eventually released a public statement. We believe Dr. Langston likely became disoriented in low visibility and succumbed to exposure. At this time, there is no evidence of foul play. But his wife never bought that. Marie was certain of one thing. Walter was too prepared, too careful. Something else happened. Something the forest was keeping quiet. Over the next 4 years, she would never stop searching. After the search was officially called off, things went quiet. But the mountain didn't stop whispering. Over the next 6 months, hikers and rangers started reporting things. Odd things. Not enough to reopen the case, but just enough to make you stop and wonder. I'll come back to where movement and awareness. A group of campers stationed near Tipsu Lake, about 10 miles from Walter's last known position, claimed they heard someone calling for help around midnight. The voice echoed, distant but clear. They described it as a panicked older man. They searched the area with flashlights. Nothing. They reported it the next morning, but by then, no sound, no trace. Then came the trail cam photo. A hiker named Jeremy, who routinely sets up motion-activated cameras to photograph wildlife, found something unusual. One of his cameras, mounted deep off-trail, captured a single image, a blurry figure walking through the trees at 3:14 a.m. The figure appeared barefoot, wearing what looked like a long, hospital-style shirt. Too far for facial recognition, but something about the posture, the slumped shoulders, the arms hanging unnaturally, struck people, almost like the person didn't know they were being watched, or didn't care. The timestamp? 2 weeks after Walter disappeared. It didn't make sense. No one should have survived out there for that long, not without food, gear, or proper shelter. But the strangest detail came next. That summer, a park ranger discovered something washed up on the bank of a creek, a notebook. Not waterproof. Just there, lying in the mud, open to a page that had 2 words scrawled in it. Over and over. Feeling vigor, still here. There was no name, no contacts, but handwriting analysts who compared it to Walter's sample from his medical notes said it was inconclusive but eerily similar. Even weirder, the notebook was dry, the surrounding ground was wet, as if it had just been placed there by the one person no one could find. By the time the 4th year rolled around, Dr. Walter Langston's case had become local legend. His family held a small memorial, hoping to find closure. Marie, now living with her daughter in Eugene, still refused to sign a death certificate. But something strange was brewing in the northeast corner of the park, an area almost no one hikes due to its marshy terrain and beaver activity. It's hard to get into, it floods easily, trails disappear, GPS glitches out. Rangers usually avoid it altogether. But on July 3rd, around noon, a couple, Nick and Carla Wallace, were on a casual hike when they noticed something odd. A massive beaver dam, nearly 6 feet tall, had blocked off a large portion of the stream. It looked fresh, like it had been rebuilt recently. Piles of sticks, mud, branches, even pieces of man-made trash woven into the structure. But what caught Carla's eye wasn't the dam. It was something tangled in the branches just a few feet downstream, a strip of red fabric, fluttering. She walked closer. It was nylon, clearly part of a backpack strap. And, not far from that, a faded sock wedged between two rocks. They took pictures, reported it to the ranger station, not thinking much of it, probably just lost gear from another hiker, right? But when rangers went out 2 days later to investigate, they decided to partially dismantle the dam to prevent overflow from damaging the trail. That's when they found it. At first, it looked like trash, just a bunch of junk tangled in mud and branches. But within minutes, they pulled out a hiking boot. Then a rusted metal water bottle with an inscription scratched faintly into the base. Langston. The rangers froze. They radioed for backup and began a careful extraction. What followed chilled them. Inside the center of the dam, buried in layers of wet sticks and compacted mud, they discovered a torn section of a waterproof hiking backpack, faded from sun exposure, a tattered Ziploc bag filled with what looked like paper scraps, and most disturbingly, a human jawbone. It wasn't gnawed on, it wasn't cracked or broken. It was perfectly intact, almost deliberately preserved. DNA tests confirmed what many already suspected: it was Walter's. Dental records sealed it. Just like that, after 4 years, the forest gave something back. What really raised eyebrows was what was inside that Ziploc bag. It was a notebook, and its contents changed everything. Ziploc was punctured, but the inner notebook was still surprisingly intact. Weather-worn, but readable. Its cover read simply, Day 1. The writing inside started organized, neat, legible, the kind of penmanship you'd expect from a doctor. It begins normally. Set up camp near Upper Ridge. Slight drop in temperature. Fog rolling in around 6 p.m. Will hold position until sunrise. But by day 3, the tone shifts. I've seen the same tree twice. I'm going in circles. Something's wrong with my compass. It spins when I stand still. I heard someone last night. They were just outside my tent. I didn't open it. I don't think they left. Then this, written shakily, underlined. Something is watching me. Doesn't make noise. Doesn't move when I look. Just waits. As the days progress, the entries become erratic, disjointed, frantic. Hunger's sharp. Water's low. Can't find the trail. Keep seeing light at night. Not stars. No wind. No sound. Then, finally, one chilling paragraph. The woods feel thick, like walking through syrup. I found a clearing, but my footprints vanish behind me. Something is wrong with time. I slept an hour, woke up and the sun had set. Trees aren't where they were. I marked one. It's gone. Then, silence. Pages are torn out. Others are smudged or unreadable. But near the end, one final entry remains. Short, unsteady handwriting, ink smudged with what looked like moisture, possibly tears, possibly rain. They're not animals. They're not people. They mimic. Stay near water. They won't cross running streams. I think I've found a place to hide. But if they find this, I'm sorry. Tell them I tried to leave. That was the last line. No one knows who they were. No one knows how the journal ended up inside a beaver dam. Some suggest it was dropped near water and the beavers just incorporated it into their construction. Others believe Walter placed it there himself, a desperate attempt to leave a message, buried inside something natural, something untouched by whatever he believed was hunting him. Experts who reviewed the notebook couldn't definitively say whether the doctor was hallucinating, possibly from dehydration or exposure. But his language was clear. Not delusional, not confused, just terrified. And that's what haunts people the most. As news of the discovery spread, it didn't take long for theories to explode online, from Reddit sleuths to amateur cryptozoologists to missing persons forums. Everyone had a take. Everyone had a theory. The official stance was simple. Dr. Walter Langston became disoriented during his hike, possibly due to fog or fatigue, and wandered into an unmarked, treacherous part of the wilderness. There, he likely succumbed to the elements, and over time, animals dispersed his remains. The Beaver Dam? A coincidence. But that explanation left a bitter aftertaste, because it ignored what was found in that notebook and the eerie nature of where his belongings ended up. Wildlife biologists chimed in first. According to experts, beavers do not normally collect human remains, let alone bury bones inside dams. They use bark, branches, rocks, mud, and occasionally trash. But a metal water bottle? A jawbone? A notebook in a plastic bag? One wildlife ecologist named Dr. Emery Bell put it bluntly in an interview. Beavers don't collect bones, period. If it ended up in that dam, it didn't get there naturally. Someone, or something, put it there. And then there was the journal. Skeptics claimed it was the product of a deteriorating mind. A man suffering from dehydration, starvation, and possibly hypothermia-induced delusions. It's not unheard of. The human brain begins to break down under extreme conditions. People start seeing things, hearing things, even creating stories to explain the chaos in their heads. But others weren't so quick to write it off. Linguists analyzed the sentence structures and writing patterns. The breakdown wasn't consistent with typical hallucinatory rambling. The grammar, the punctuation, even in the later pages, still carried form and control. Whatever Walter saw, he believed it. And he was lucid enough to try to warn someone. Then came the symbols. Buried in the corners of several pages were small, repeated symbols. Triangles within circles, jagged lines, mirrored numbers. At first glance, they seemed like mindless doodles, but indigenous historians recognized some of them as ancient warning signs, used by early tribes in the Pacific Northwest to mark forbidden areas, not necessarily for physical danger, but spiritual ones. In fact, one of the symbols found in Walter's notebook bore a strong resemblance to Tsiatko warnings, a mythical race of watchers or wild men spoken of by local Salish tribes. These beings were said to live deep in the woods, mimicking voices to lure people off paths. Not quite animals, not quite human, something in between. Sound familiar? A retired ethnographer named Louis Shen made this connection public. He'd spent 30 years studying oral histories from tribal elders in the area. According to him, they talk about watchers, things that wear the shape of people but aren't. They stay quiet. They watch from trees. They whisper your name. When you respond, they know where you are. The mention of "they mimic" in Walter's journal took on a new weight. Could the doctor have run into something he couldn't explain, something ancient, something not documented by modern science? Or was it just the forest playing tricks on a desperate dying man? In the middle of all the chaos, the speculation, the stories, the documentaries, was Marie Langston, Walter's wife of 42 years. She never gave up, never changed her phone number, never moved out of their home until she had no choice. She refused to sign a death certificate. For 4 years, she kept her husband's jacket hanging on the coat rack by the door, untouched. When she was shown the notebook, she broke down. In a recorded interview, she said, "He wasn't crazy, he was scared. I know his handwriting, I know how he thinks. He wrote that for me, to let me know. He didn't just disappear, he tried to come back." Marie also confirmed something no one else knew. Walter had nightmares about being lost in the woods, the same stretch of forest near Mount Rainier. In the months before his trip, he had mentioned seeing shapes in the fog during his hikes. He chalked it up to imagination, but it unsettled him. She believes Walter found something out there, or it found him, and she believes the Beaver Dam wasn't random. He knew they wouldn't look there. He hid it where nature would protect it, and it did. For 4 years. His daughter Caroline has since launched a petition to reopen the case, not as a missing person report, but as something more, something unexplained, She wants the journal authenticated. She wants answers. But as of now, the National Park Service has labeled the case closed by circumstance. They returned Walter's remains to the family, but no real answers. Now here's where this story stops being just a missing person case and starts becoming a question about what's really in those woods. After Walter's jawbone was found, rangers conducted a follow-up sweep of the surrounding area. They found no full skeleton, no additional gear, no signs of scavenging, just the dam, just the jaw, just the journal. But there's one more detail, something that wasn't widely released to the public, but was leaked by an anonymous park employee. Inside the Beaver Dam, behind the layer where Walter's things were found, rangers uncovered something else. A small animal skull, perfectly clean, sitting in the center like it had been placed on purpose. And underneath it, a feather, bright red. What species of bird it came from, no one could say. It didn't match any in the region, and when DNA tested, it came back unknown. The lab result read, "No match found in existing avian database." Now that could be an error, a contaminated sample, or something rare and undocumented. But when you pair that with the symbols, the journal, and the timeline, something doesn't add up. As of this recording, the dam has been partially reconstructed by the beavers, but the original discovery site has been sealed off. Rangers claim it's due to erosion control, but no one's allowed back in. And when an independent YouTube filmmaker tried to visit the spot a year later, he claimed his drone went haywire, stopped responding, dropped out of the sky. He never found the dam again. Some say it's just the forest reclaiming what's hers. Others aren't so sure. So what really happened to Dr. Walter Langston? Did he get lost? Succumb to the cold? Hallucinate as his body gave up? Or did something older, something unknown, follow him through the trees, whisper to him in the fog, draw him deeper and deeper until he wasn't lost, but taken? The truth is, we may never know. But here's what we do know. A highly intelligent man, stable, rational, meticulous, vanished under calm weather in a well-marked trail system. He left no trace for years. Then his personal belongings and part of his remains turned up inside a structure made by animals that don't normally interact with human debris. And in his final words, written by hand in a notebook hidden inside that very dam, he wrote this. They're not animals. They're not people. They mimic. Stay near water. They won't cross running streams. I think I've found a place to hide. And finally, if they find this, I'm sorry. Tell them I tried to leave. Whether it's nature, madness, or something else entirely, that last line sticks. The woods take people every year. Most are found, but some leave behind only stories. Watch the next story. It might just explain what really happened to Dr. Langston. And they found more pages. And what's written in them rewrites everything we thought we knew about what happened to Dr. Langston. No announcement, no press release, just a quiet email with 9 attached images sent to a local journalist 3 weeks after Walter Langston's remains were pulled from a beaver dam. What was in that email has never been officially acknowledged by the Park Service. And yet, it changes everything. Pages from Walter's journal, real ones, that were never released to the public. Written in his own handwriting, more entries, more drawings, and one chilling message that flips the original story upside down. If the forest had secrets, these pages cracked them open. What was found inside the notebook, and what Walter tried to document before he vanished completely, isn't just disturbing, it's impossible to ignore. Let's get into it. It came from a burner email account. No name, no signature, no explanation. Just a single line in the message body. These weren't part of the official report. They should have been. Attached were 9 high-resolution scans, weathered, torn, but legible. They were verified almost instantly by a forensic handwriting analyst hired by an independent investigator. Same ink patterns, same stroke pressure, same irregularities. These weren't fake. These were Walter's. The pages were dated, most falling between day 11 and day 17 after his disappearance. That's at least a full week after the official search was called off, meaning he was alive, moving, and still writing. Why weren't these included in the case file? According to the anonymous sender, they were flagged internally and considered irrelevant due to mental degradation. In other words, they thought he was hallucinating. But when you read what Walter wrote, it doesn't feel like the mind of a man unraveling. It feels like someone trying desperately to document something no one would believe, and someone trying to leave behind a warning. The first new entry starts like this. Day 11. I can't trust the sun. It moves wrong. It was above me, then it was gone. The trees don't cast shadows anymore. I don't sleep because I wake up in new places. Right away, it's clear this is no longer the careful, logical doctor from day one. Something's happened to him. But what's strange is how deliberate his writing still is. Even as the content becomes more surreal, the grammar and sentence structure remain sharp. This isn't a brain melting from dehydration. This is a man experiencing something that doesn't follow the rules of the world he knew. He talks about movement in the woods, not animals, not footsteps, but what he calls the ripple, describes the trees swaying without wind, mentions a distant humming like a power line in the sky. But then it shifts. Entry from day 13. Saw myself standing across the stream. Same face. Same gear. It stared, didn't blink, didn't speak. I turned away, but it didn't. It just kept looking. I don't think it needed to breathe. Then a full-page entry written in third person. He walked through the wood, but didn't feel his feet. The moss gave way to water, and the water to mist, and still the trees moved with him. He wasn't prey, not yet. But he was being watched, and not by anything warm. As if Walter had stopped identifying as himself. He repeatedly describes a clearing too symmetrical, with a ring of stones stacked in ways that shouldn't balance. And always the sense of being watched. I hide near water. It doesn't follow. It doesn't like the stream. I crossed it 3 times. Each time it stayed behind, but it waits. I think it wants me to stop moving. That's not panic, that's strategy. He was still fighting to survive. On day 15, he writes, I've left markers. I've carved signs into bark. If anyone finds this, follow the 3 lines, not the arrow. The arrow lies. That line alone has spawned hundreds of conspiracy threads. What does it mean? What arrow? Is it a reference to trail markers or something? Or someone trying to lead him the wrong way? Later pages include strange symbols, triangles within circles, lines with mirrored ends, shapes that seem abstract but appear over and over again. Experts would later confirm some of these are similar to warning signs used by ancient Northwest tribes to mark taboo ground. But the final few entries in this set are something else entirely. Walter stops talking about surviving. He starts talking about them. It's the 7th leaked page where things get specific. Up until that point, Walter's entries were all emotion, description, and metaphor. But then, coordinates. Scrawled in the top right corner of the page, barely legible, was a GPS marker. 46.8712 DGN 1217243 DEG W. At first glance, it looks meaningless. No explanation, no context, just a string of numbers most people would skip over. But when mapped out, that spot doesn't land on a trail. Doesn't land near any known hiking route or ranger path. It lands in the middle of thick, marshy wilderness, roughly 11 miles southeast of the original search grid, an area known to flood, overgrow rapidly, and remain completely untracked by satellite for most of the year. And that's where things get even weirder. Multiple attempts to view this spot on Google Earth show nothing but a blur, an actual visual distortion in the terrain. Zoom in and you'll find static, like an overexposed photo. The image data glitches. Some people say it's just a cloud layer or bad rendering. but satellite image history shows that same distortion going back as far as 2012. Even weirder, GPS devices tested in the area have a tendency to fail. That region is known among hikers as a dead zone, not just for reception but for orientation. Compasses go haywire, direction feels unreliable. Some have described feeling disoriented without even knowing why. And Walter wrote about it. One of his entries reads, "The compass spins. North doesn't stay north. I've walked in straight lines that end at the place I started. The trees are the same, but the sound changes. I think the ground moves." If that sounds like nonsense, keep in mind that multiple people over the past decade have reported identical sensations in that area. Lost time, backtracking, feeling watched. Some never went back. Some didn't come out at all. The 9th and final page of the leak includes a name, Jackson. If Jackson finds this, don't follow me. Stay near the light. Don't drink the water. Most people skipped over it at first. Just a name. But to those close to Walter, it meant something. Jackson wasn't random. He was a real person. Jackson Miller, Walter's closest hiking companion during his residency years. They were both survival buffs, used to do off-grid trips together long before GPS and gear got high-tech. Jackson passed away in 2018, a year before Walter went missing. Heart failure, quiet funeral, no drama. So why would Walter reference him as if he were alive and nearby? Some suggest he was hallucinating, speaking to the memory of a friend for comfort. Others think he heard a voice calling itself Jackson, something imitating familiarity, a name it couldn't have known unless it had been watching him for a long time. One line in particular stands out. It sounded right. But his eyes didn't move, and he didn't blink. And he didn't walk like a person. The implications are disturbing. Walter's journal paints a picture of something that doesn't just stalk. It mimics. It borrows. It pretends. It uses what you know, voices, faces, memories, to pull you deeper. It's worse. Caroline, Walter's daughter, confirmed that he never told anyone about Jackson being sick. That detail was private, shared only between them. So how did it make it into his final journal? If the words didn't convince people, something strange happened. The drawings did. Over the course of the journal, Walter repeatedly draws symbols, scattered on the edges of the pages, sometimes in between entries, and once across an entire page in thick, shaking lines. Some look like nonsense, but when stacked side by side, patterns emerge. A repeating loop, 3 vertical lines, a circle beneath them, and a jagged V on top. This appears 6 times across different pages, always near passages where Walter mentions fear, movement, or the presence of them. An independent historian, researching tribal markings from the Pacific Northwest, identified several of the symbols as near-exact matches to protection glyphs carved by Salish tribes. These weren't art, these were warnings, used to mark unclean ground, places believed to be haunted, cursed, or occupied by spirits that do not belong to this world. Even more disturbing, one of the symbols appears in documented photos taken inside a now-destroyed hunting cabin 11 miles east of Walter's last known location. That cabin burned down in 2001 under suspicious circumstances. The owner, a reclusive hunter named Mark Kilby, was said to have left the forest after claiming he saw himself come back from a hike before he actually returned. He carved the same 3-layer glyph on the interior walls. Reports say he left the forest muttering about echoes that don't wait for sound. After his disappearance, fire crews found the structure still burning, but without any signs of accelerants or a lightning strike. It was ruled unexplained ignition. Same area, same symbols. Something has lived in those woods for a long time, or at least something has been seen. And Walter wasn't the first. The last 2 leaked pages from Walter Langston's journal are the most disturbing. Not because of what they describe, but because of what they don't. They're filled with fragments, incomplete thoughts, lines that repeat without punctuation, Words that trail off mid-sentence, then pick up somewhere else. The structure breaks down, but not into nonsense, into something that feels haunted. Page 1 begins, "Woke up beside the pond again. Same pond, same stone, same reflection. I moved, but I didn't leave." He writes that he crossed the stream again, the same one he said they wouldn't follow him across. But this time something was different. The water didn't push them back. I think it's because I stayed too long. It's not the stream, it's the sound. They mimic it. They hum. He describes standing between two trees and watching himself walk by. Again, not someone who looked like him. Him, same limp, same tear in the jacket sleeve, same beard. The only difference? Didn't look up, just moved forward. I stayed frozen. I think if I'd moved, I'd be there instead. The journal continues in short clipped phrases. Voices now, don't wait for night. They walk during fog, during rain. They hate sun. Balm got close. I touched it. It was cold, but didn't flinch. It said my name, then laughed, my laugh, my mouth. But I hadn't spoken. The last legible paragraph, written in handwriting almost too shaky to read, is the most unsettling. They know you're reading this. That's why I kept writing. Because maybe if I'm not the last, it won't keep going. Maybe it ends when someone else believes. But if you go looking, you're what they need. After that, no more words. Just a single black smudge across the final page, a line that starts clean and ends as if the pen was yanked out of his hand. If everything in those pages is real, even 10% of it, the implications are massive. It means Walter survived for weeks after vanishing. It means the search was called off too soon. It means he encountered something in those woods that broke every law of nature, physics, and human psychology we understand. But more than that, it means the forest knew he was writing. It means it let him. And maybe it let the journal be found not as a mistake, but as a message. Walter didn't just leave behind warnings, he left behind evidence. Coordinates, drawings, descriptions that match decades-old oral legends. He wasn't imagining it. He was documenting it. This is the part that should make you uncomfortable. When the newly leaked journal pages began circulating, the National Park Service made no official comment, zero acknowledgement, no press releases, not even a denial. When pressed, a spokesperson responded simply, "We are not aware of any new materials related to the Langston case." But the leaked scans include evidence stamps, metadata matching the original journal, page numbers that line up with the version Walter's family was never allowed to see. So if the park wasn't hiding these us, insiders say rangers have now been ordered to avoid the area around the blurred GPS coordinates due to soil instability and flood risk. A new fence was installed along the only unmarked access route. Cameras have been mounted, supposedly to monitor wildlife patterns, but no wildlife study has been filed for that region in over 8 years. Meanwhile, hikers report being told to stay away, not with fines or tickets, but with vague warnings like, "Not a good place this time of year," or "Weather shifts unpredictably down there." Even experienced trail guides say the zone feels off, that compass errors happen only in that one stretch, that some trees seem too straight, too smooth, too similar, that people feel watched, and not in the usual way. But here's the detail that pushed everything over the edge. Someone tried to film the site. A YouTuber known for deep woods exploration videos followed the leaked GPS coordinates with a drone. He uploaded one video claiming he'd found what he believed to be the location of the pond Walter wrote about. No trail, just terrain. The drone feed was choppy, static, but in 3 frames, paused and brightened, you can see it. A figure, standing perfectly still just inside the tree line. Not facing the drone, not moving. The footage was pulled down within 48 hours. Channel wiped. No explanation. The historic is gone. The final journal page, the very last one, in a different pen, possibly written just before Walter hid the notebook, says, "If you find this, it means they let it go. That's not good. Don't follow. Don't read more. Don't let them know you believe. And then, you'll find this only if they want you to, and if you do, run." Walter Langston didn't just die in the woods. He documented something, and now we have pieces of that documentation. Torn, scattered, buried by animals, hidden from the public, and finally leaked by someone who knew it wasn't right to bury the truth. These pages change the timeline. They change the location. They change the cause. They change the entire story. And if Walter was right, we're not dealing with a simple disappearance. We're dealing with something older, something smarter, something patient, something that doesn't want to be seen, but wants to be known. And it may not be finished. Watch what the drone footage really showed before it disappeared.